Hi, welcome to Dear Art Producer. I am your host, Heather Elder, and today is February 12th, 2021, and I have invited Alicia Potter, founder of Faven Creative, to be our guest today. I love that the name of her company is a blend of favorite and haven because it combines her favorite passions, food and design. I've only just gotten to know Alicia and hope to see her on set someday. Hi, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to have you as a guest today. It's so nice to have gotten to know you a little bit through one of our photographers, Dan Goldberg. And when I read that article about you on LinkedIn, it just made me smile. And I knew I wanted to have you as a guest. So I really, really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Good. Well, tell us a little bit about your background and why you started your business. I thought that was a really interesting part of the article I read.
Yeah, well, I started my career 20 years ago in traditional advertising. In fact, I was in Chicago, and then kind of fast forward several years, I moved to Los Angeles and then to Boulder, Colorado, where I still am today. And I was working for an agency here called the Sterling Rice Group. And at that time, and actually, I'll back up and say, interestingly, like throughout my entire career, I was always working on CPG brands, whether it was like kind of the big boys like craft brands, and then when here in SRG in Boulder, a lot of the more kind of natural organic brands. So always in CPG world, always loving food, just personally loved food, and I had some health issues a while ago and really discovered the power of food and what it can do for your health. And so that made my passion of just wanting to work for really great brands and companies even more so. And I was sitting at my office one day and I just thought, I just had my second child. I thought, what better time to start a business than when you've got an infant? But I did, and my husband was super supportive, and I thought this is going to work or it's not. But let's just kind of take it one day at a time. So there was no grand plan of anything. I just knew that I had these passions that I really wanted to share, and that being design, and then just this love of food and what it can do for us, and thought that the community here in Boulder is like the epicenter of natural food. So I thought, okay, I have enough connections. There's enough kind of people I can tap and see what might happen. And lo and behold, it just kind of took off on its own, and it's been 8 years.
Oh, that's amazing. I was smiling when I was reading you say that you wanted to be out on your own and have your own business because if you had free time, you wanted to be able to spend it with your children. And I have three kids and my own business, and I was laughing out loud, thinking, "Okay, there's no such thing as free time."
Oh my gosh, you're so right. But at least you control how you
Exactly.
use your time.
Absolutely, absolutely. There were, sideline conference calls that I had watching soccer games, and I was able to go do lunch duty and all of those things that I wouldn't have been able to do if it wasn't my own business for sure. So, yes, but free time
Totally.
is. I wish we all had a little bit more of that.
I don't even know what that is. In fact, I know I work harder now than I ever have before, but I love it so much more. And it is, you can still get out and volunteer at your kid's school. You can find your own time, but then, the blend of work and life sometimes is a little too mushy, but that's okay.
Well, and when your work is your passion, you don't mind if you're spending, some weekend hours or some other time, on it because you love it so much.
Exactly.
So, I know all of our roles, while they are defined, they're varied. We all wear a lot of different hats, especially now. And I know that you founded Faven, but I wonder what your day to day is like. Like, what are you mostly working on for your clients? And what's that role for you?
I think I play a lot of different roles because Faven is small. I have a team of kind of contractors that I work with, especially for brand strategy and writing things that I don't do as well on my own. But one of the things when I started out with Faven was I love designing. And as I was going through my career at other agencies, I found myself doing less and less of that because you kind of climb up the ladder a little bit and you're sitting in meetings, you're not necessarily kind of getting your hands on the work. And that's what I really loved. So on a typical day, I try to devote the most of my time to actually designing and doing something. Now, it's not always like that. But design is always part of it. So I will be very hands on all of our projects. And projects are always in different phases too. So some days it is more just kind of research and strategic thinking. There's other days where I'll spend a lot of the day writing proposals, or then there's always just the kind of admin stuff, because my team, we're small. I have a group of trusted contractors that come on for the projects, just depending on the scope of the project. So strategists, writers. I do have production help, and that's amazing because I can't do it all, and that is for sure. And some additional design support, but it is really just critical for me to be able to roll up my sleeves. And in fact, my entire team too, we're all pretty senior. We've all been doing this a long time and like to do the work, and that's what we will continue to do. And I also think too, it's something that distinguishes us from other kind of smaller agencies, as well as, we're the people that are selling the work, that's doing the work, and that's kind of really gets to know you and with you throughout the entire process.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so personal.
Exactly.
I think that's, really such a positive thing. And I know, at least from my experiences with you, and I know that from Dan's experiences with you, that it is very personal. Everyone's kind of getting to know each other, and there's just um, such another level of kind of engagement when you can have it be that intimate of a connection.
Totally. I think you just get to know the ins and outs of individuals, and then also the company. And then when I'm working on developing, their new packaging, their new identity, whatever it may be, it's like I really know them, and I know kind of some of those challenges and problems they're trying to solve at such a deeper level than I would if I was just handed a creative brief, without really kind of going through the whole process with them. So, and then, yeah, I mean, my clients are my friends, just much like Dan and I worked together. I think the first time, I don't know if we decided, it was like 17 years ago.
Oh my God,
We've
that's so
worked
great.
together so long and have been friends for a very long time.
Well, what do you think is the most challenging aspect of your job?
That's a great question. As we have, grown and had more clients, I would say it's maintaining project flow. I can't always, I do my best to control, like, all right, this is, be very transparent. Like, this is our timeline. These are the stages of the project that we're going to be going through. But things happen that are out of our control. Clients might, oh, we decided we're going to pause for a little while for X, Y, or Z, or you know what, let's do some more consumer research right now. And that's all great. And so it's just being able to, I guess, remain nimble and flexible and kind of go with the flow and not freak out over it. I always say, like, I don't worry about things because I know that they will work out and it will still be great. But sometimes I can get a little bit stressed just managing, all right, this is going on, this is going on, this just shifted. Okay, how is this all going to come together?
There's a lot of moving parts, and I think COVID also makes it more so. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of moving parts in COVID. I mean, a lot of my clients, they're not in Colorado, so I don't always get to meet people in person. Of course, I'd always prefer that, but like even just with our team, we haven't been able to get together as much in person. Or when we do, at least when it was warmer, we meet outside somewhere where we felt more comfortable. And so I do miss that in-person collaboration and kind of spitballing ideas, and because it's so much faster that way. And I think we're all just getting Zoom fatigued. And I think it kind of drains some of your creativity because you really are then just stuck in front of your computer. And
Yeah.
part of my process is to just get beyond my computer. Like, I think Pinterest in some ways is like the death of creativity because all you're doing is looking at what's been done versus like finding an idea, getting out there, pulling it from somewhere else.
I was gonna say finding the inspiration from somewhere else. I mean, I'm sure living in
Exactly.
Boulder, just getting outside and seeing the beauty that's around you and clearing your head is
Totally.
just so important. Okay, so what about the clients that you're working with right now, or even conversations you're having with, potential new clients? What is it that they're asking of you right now?
Well, I think for all of our clients, obviously e-commerce has shifted. Like with COVID, so much has shifted to e-commerce. I mean, obviously we're still going to the grocery stores, but that has been important, but for those where it maybe wasn't as important, just making sure that their branding, their identity, all of that really performs well online as well as on shelf. But I would say overall, like, clients, I think there was a momentary pause with COVID where we all kind of held our breath for like a week or two. And then I think those same problems still exist. Like, days are still passing, consumers are still shopping. So it's, in some ways, the same problem and challenges are there pre and post COVID. And it really is, making sure that their brand is resonating with consumers, and understanding that consumer at a deeper level and being able to take those insights and really transform it into powerful branding that's going to work on shelf and emotionally connect with those consumers as well. I think some of the challenges recently I've heard from a few brands we're talking to right now is they're like, functionally we're great, people get it, but anybody can copy someone's function or an attribute, like more protein or more, less
Hmm.
carbs, whatever it is. But to have an authentic emotional benefit and something that consumers can connect with is so hard to replicate and harder to do, and that's what people are seeking.
So what you're saying is really interesting, and it's making me think a little bit about messaging in the food category. Like, has that changed because of the pandemic, or does it change always? Like, what is happening around messaging for food clients?
Yeah, I think it hasn't necessarily changed because of the pandemic, but I think the, the natural food world, the just kind of, general food and beverage world has, it's fast. It's very fast paced these days. Looking back, even 5 or 10 years, you see so many new brands entering the market, so many new, trends or fads, whether it's keto or plant based. I think some of those are here to stay. I think plant based is definitely here to stay. But you have some of these trends that are infusing. You've got a consumer that is, I feel like, evolving more quickly as well, where you brands are constantly having to reevaluate, making sure that they're still connecting with those consumers, making sure they're still relevant. There isn't a new shiny object sitting next to them
Well,
on
that's
shelf
what I
that's
was going to say.
outgrown.
Like, I wonder, the competition is we feel it in the photography industry, right? There's so
Mm-hmm.
many photographers out there, so we constantly have to put out the next photo, the next project, the next story to show that we're still relevant and push the boundaries and try and come up with something new. And I see that with brands and obviously with food brands as well. They have to come up with the next product or the next whatever it is because there is a shiny new object and they have to make sure that they're paying attention to what their audience wants and they're giving it to them.
Exactly. I mean, their innovation is huge. I mean, and especially, the trade shows aren't happening like they used to, but Expo West would always be in March. And, by August, we'd get all of the clients calling and saying, all right, we're launching this new something at Expo and we need to work on this and have to get it ready and all of that. So, and that's just the way the world is where nobody's ever just stagnant. It's always evolving and always changing.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm fascinated too by like the food trends that are out there and how quickly they come. And I agree with you. I think plant-based is for sure here to stay, and I find it so exciting of these certain brands that are embracing the plant-based food trend that you wouldn't normally think that they would. And then it's kind of cool to see how they're branding around it and what their messaging is. So that's got to be exciting for you to be a part of that.
Oh, I love it. I mean, I love, kind of knowing what companies are thinking about doing and putting out there and seeing how, talking about messaging. I mean, vegan products have been around forever, but in the last, 5 years or whatever it's been, that plant-based has been the much more approachable uh, terminology for something that is vegan. Vegan seems really strict and harsh and maybe too hippie or whatever, but plant-based is like this lifestyle that, like, I can opt into sometimes if I want.
The power of branding.
Right? I mean, just some of those simple things. But yes, plant based. It's everywhere.
That's funny. Well, let's talk a little bit about production. I'm curious if you were, how often you shoot, and how does COVID play into that for you? Are you doing on remote sets? And, just I think the audience that listens always likes the insights into how different agencies or clients are handling productions. And, so anything you can offer there or experiences you can share would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we have been shooting through COVID. Definitely the biggest production we did was with Dan in December, and that was a full week. I think we had a lot of, I don't know, 39 shots or something. I mean, it was a lot. And for me, I was nervous. I've never not been on set, to look at all of the props, to make sure everything is looking great, oh, move that chocolate chip over to the right, and so it was great because Dan and I have worked together so much, so we know each other, and I didn't have to get to know how he worked. I knew how he worked. Obviously, I trust him. I know he's insanely talented. And so we just kind of talked through like, this is how it's going to go. And I know he's been shooting a lot in particular during COVID. And I was really impressed with how smooth it went, and how, of course, I would always prefer to be on set. I think that would have, even been smoother. But all things considered, it went incredibly well. And so I was really pleased with that. And I will say though, I'm not sure I would have, on a project of that size, worked with a photographer that I didn't know.
And that comes up a lot right now with
Mm-hmm.
on other podcasts that we've been recording, or just conversations I'm having with art producers and clients about, you know, it's hard. There's a lot of things that are different. People aren't on set; they're remote, chiming in. The days are choreographed a little bit differently, and especially for people who haven't been shooting much during COVID, they're not looking to. It's not that they're not looking to try someone new; they just feel really confident in using someone that they've used before,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because it really is a dance that you have to get right. There's not a lot of room for error, and it's hard to do that, especially because you have to rely so much on communication too.
Mhm.
And if you don't know the person that you're communicating with very well, I don't know. It's just it seems easier. People are opting more for shooting with people that they know.
Yeah, I think why take another risk or make it potentially more complicated when shooting during COVID, at least initially, was complicated enough.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So have you come across any unique or kind of innovative approaches to production right now? Or I know the first time you kind of, one of your biggest shoots was the one with Dan, and, you guys just zoomed in and stuff, but like, is anybody targeting you with other ideas or ways that you're kind of intrigued or curious about right now?
I would say, I mean, nothing exceptionally unique. The few other shoots that we've done are, kind of just via Zoom as well. So,
It's
no,
so amazing how efficient Zoom is.
I
You
know.
know?
I know. It really is. I mean, it's really great, especially like, being able to just mark things up on your screen and everybody is looking at the same thing. It was great. So no, nothing,
Well, and
nothing.
it's funny, and except for the fact that you have to look at yourself all day long, you would like you
Oh,
and I were talking about before the call started.
I know. Thank you for not having a video right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. At one point, we talked about maybe taking Dear Art Producer to a kind of a Zoom format and making it live and putting it up on YouTube, and all of us were like who were discussing the benefits of it, we're like, "Well, what is the benefit?" Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing gained in seeing us talk. You're like, we don't do anything differently because we're and then we all were like, yeah, and who wants to see us anymore? Like, we're done.
Yes. Thank you. I'm glad you guys voted that way.
Well, let's talk a little bit about estimating
Yeah.
and treatments. Um, let's talk about treatments first, actually. Do
Mhm.
you request treatments from the photographers and directors you work with, or do you not? And how helpful they are? Do your clients like them?
Yeah. So, for bigger projects, definitely request treatments. And typically on those type of projects too, we're bidding a couple photographers. And I think that it's a way to, not only show off the photographer's work, but to also kind of tell a story in the way that the work is presented as well. So, for instance, I've seen a lot of different treatments. Some are super tactical and functional, and here is how we're going to do it. And this is just my own personal opinion, so
Yeah.
clients respond differently. But and then I see others where it just feels a little bit more engaging and human, and just the way like the way they're talking about lighting and the way that we're talking about food styling and this and that and sometimes it like dramatizes the kind of proposal or the treatment, I should say, a little bit more, but it's just more engaging than and also includes like a lot of the technical things that we may or may not understand with what types of
It
lenses.
sounds like to you it's more inviting when it's that way.
It is more inviting, and I think for my clients, who don't go through this, don't shoot that often, this is like a rare thing, especially for packaging. That doesn't change 5 years, 10 years. So they're not used to seeing treatments. And so I think it can really just have them understand, like, okay, they get me, they understand what we're trying to do, and
Yeah.
talk to them in a way that brings them along.
Well, and kind of back to something you said in the earlier part of the conversation is this idea of this emotional connection to the brand,
Mhm.
right? So if a photographer creates a treatment and can bring some sort of emotional connection to the project, I
Yeah.
think that would, speak volumes to a client who's
Yes.
reviewing them.
100%. And I know they take time for the photographers for sure. Like it's for myself, like writing proposals, it's like I do try to personalize them because I think that's what people will remember.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with that for sure. So when you are presenting photographers for a project to a client,
Hmm.
over the years, with all of your experiences from working at different agencies to being on your own, do you find that clients are more or less likely now to take your recommendation? Or is it has it been the same?
Oh, I think, by nature of the way that I run Faven, and just kind of, we talk again about those personal connections and just sort of the intimate relationships that we can, make, because we are like so lockstep in everything we're doing, from the strategy through the design, and myself am involved in all of those phases. And so really have just become close with the client. So trust is there. And I'm so thankful. Like, my clients really trust me and look for me to advise them. And I will say, though, I have to educate a lot, because these branding projects and doing, if they've got like 40 or 50 different SKUs of product, like I said, they're not changing it often. And
Yeah.
so when they do change it, it is a big investment. And so they trust, obviously, my knowledge on how to do it, but I have to spend time educating them and just getting them comfortable with the idea of what I think it might cost, because they don't know. They have nothing to compare it to. And I'm sure the, kind of turnkeyness of like social media and inexpensive stock photography has just got people thinking, oh, it's not going to be that much or whatever. And I'm like, no, to do this right, to do it well, and to have it, not only that, but like then produce well on our different packaging materials and all of that, like, it's going to take time. And so I really try to spend that time with my clients to educate them on why we need to, it's, you have to invest in this. This is, your packaging is your primary billboard.
Well, and that's so important. And I think you kind of just answered my next question, which is I was wondering if there's anything you feel like clients need to be better educated about in terms of the process. And I love what you just said about, their packaging is their greatest billboard right there.
Mhm.
And putting the time and the money and the effort and the, behind getting it right, for sure, I think is really, really important because we've all been on the side of not doing it right. We've seen the results of that, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, well, and I also say, I always start the conversation at like the white t-shirt analogy. It's like, you can buy a $2 white t-shirt, or you could buy like a $200 white t-shirt. You can probably buy a $2,000 white t-shirt, but you kind of get what you pay for. And so, because your packaging is so important, it has that longevity. We need to get it right. And so, you'll always be able to find someone to do it for less, but that doesn't mean that's the way to go. And so, and then just kind of, I start those conversations early, especially like when I'm presenting initial concepts and they are relying on photography, that they know like to execute this well we need to talk about what kind of budgets we need to have in order to do this.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Well, your clients are lucky to have you.
Oh, thanks.
Well, let's talk about marketing for a little bit, like marketing to you.
Mhm.
How are people, photographers who want to get your attention, how are they finding you right now? How do they, you know, catch your eye?
Well, it's not like, when I was working at big agencies, you'd always have portfolio showings and you get a million different mailers in your mailbox at work. Because Faven is so small, I do get, some, and I still obviously look at those. But I will say, like, I don't feel like anywhere near the influx of reps or photographers or illustrators, people reaching out to me. I think some do through LinkedIn. So for me, it's like I kind of just look around online and I'm kind of more searching out, different photographers and different people that might be right for specific projects. And I think it's just by nature of Faven being so small, that unless you know me personally, you probably wouldn't have my email or send me something.
So when you go through that process, where do you start online? Like, I know you're not Googling like cool food photographer. So,
No, reaching out to other, art directors that are still at big agencies,
uh-huh.
friends who were art buyers or still are art buyers, just like using my network and
Yeah. No, and I think that speaks to the importance of having a network,
yeah,
right? Of the importance of word of mouth and, being us having strong relationships. I think it comes down to that, every part of what we do in our what you do in your job and what I do in mine always comes back to the relationship. Who do you know? What experiences have they had with you? What's your reputation? All of that stuff is just so important in our world.
100%. And I think, especially here in Boulder, the natural food community, even other agencies, like we all will help each other out. So it is like who you know and just asking a question and then boom, there you go. You've got like 3 or 4 new options you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think so much of our industry depends on that. There's really amazing online resources and great source books and lots of places that you can go and kind of look for things. And
Mhm.
Instagram is awesome. Even LinkedIn, like we have a lot of tools to go searching for things that we need. But I think, relying on our network is it's so important because it's word of mouth, right? It's somebody else is vouching for you, and I think that speaks volumes.
Totally. I mean, in fact, that's that's how Faven has grown. I mean, it is word of mouth. It's like, you trust people, you trust your friends, you trust people especially when they have positive experiences working with specific
Exactly.
people.
Exactly. Well, we're kind of wrapping up, and I always have two questions that I like to ask.
Sure.
And one is, what is your favorite thing to do on a Sunday?
Oh man. Well, here we have so many beautiful trails. So I like to I spend so much time behind my computer. So I need to get outside, whether it's taking a hike with a friend or my family. That's kind of my go-to is just to be outside. And right now we're getting in a lot of snow skiing.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you weren't at Faven, right? If you weren't a designer and had your own place, and you can choose something else to do, what is it that you would want to do?
Oh man. Yeah, I think well, I think I would do something in music. I love, and I don't know how to do this, but this is if I could do anything. So I do play piano, but I love mix of electronic music and classical music. And when I retire, I want to figure out how to kind of create my own combinations of
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so that I look forward to my retirement when I can learn something new.
I love this question because I feel like the answers are things that I would never guess, and it just is so insightful. So now I know something new about you. That's great. Well, Alicia, this was fantastic, and you provided so much insight into the food world and some production as well. And I just think our listeners, we don't often get a lot of guests like you in this particular world, and it's a really important, unique category. So thanks for pulling back the curtain for us and sharing some of your thoughts.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.